everybody. My name is Jerry, and I'm an addict. First of all, I want to thank God for touch and feel in the committee's heart, find me worthy of speaking at Narcotics Anonymous meeting. I'm not sure, what I'm going to talk about, but I guess it'll be about me. Came into this fellowship over 30-something years ago, went back out a couple times. One thing I learned on the relapses that I had is a place I didn't want to be. Used for over 20-something years, probably overdosed 4 or 5 times, been arrested maybe 13, 14 times. So I was born and raised on the north side of Pittsburgh, down by Western Penitentiary. There was a community down there. It was very integrated. It was very liberal. And my mom and dad were like about 40, 41 years old when I was born. I had siblings that were 20-something years older than me. I'm saying all that to say, like, ever since I can remember me, things were a little bit confusing for me. My brother has always felt like my father. My parents felt like my grandparents. And the feelings that I can always identify with was fear, uncertainty. When people would look at me, they would always say, "Look at him." I was always real laid back, kind of standoffish, observed a lot. And one example that I give about me is y'all playing, look like you're having fun, and I'm the guy on the outside with his hands in the fence, kind of looking at you, wishing I could participate, but didn't know how. So my father was alcoholic, and I share this a lot. How I got to understand my dad, because I had some resentments and all that kind of stuff, but I don't have them anymore. How I understood my dad was to understand me. Once I became addicted, once I understood my addiction, then I understood the things that my father must have went through, because my father wasn't a bad man. My father, mother died when he was like 10. I don't think he knew his father. His sister who raised him died when he was 13. And he actually was on his own since the age of 13. He was one of them guys that jumped on a train, on the back of the train, came up north, went into the military service, actually did something that I knew would have been impossible for me to do. So with all this confusion, not uncertainty and all this kind of stuff, I started using probably in maybe 10th, 11th grade. If you knew me then, though, I was kind of a anti-drug, anti-alcoholic, alcohol kind of guy. So when I started using, it was more or less like to fit in. I need to say this about me. I never liked the lifestyle. I've always had conflict with the lifestyle. I wasn't one of them guys that say, man, I really enjoy the lifestyle and this, that, and the other. I felt conflict and reservations the whole time. That's how I understand what powerlessness really means. Because I remember getting caught up in the grips of using and just exaggerating that feeling of uncertainty, that feeling of fear, like knowing I know I shouldn't fucking be here, but not knowing how not to be there. So it's like a vacuum just kind of sucked me up. I'm in it before I even know what happened, and I'm off to college. When I get to college, that's when some of the guys I hooked up with and played basketball with and players of fraternity, we were snorting heroin and it just kind of took off. So I remember coming back to Pittsburgh. Things got out of whack for me. I came back to Pittsburgh. I tried to go back to school. Wasn't able to do that. By then, my addiction was full blown. One ironic thing about it, I was able to go through an apprenticeship program to be an electrician. Damn near high every day. But I made it through. So I never was interested in. Well, I was interested. I was going to say I wasn't interested in getting high. I was interested in getting high, getting clean. I just didn't know how to get clean. The one guy that I asked to be my sponsor, his name was John, he passed away. John was one of the few black men that I knew in my community that was clean. The last time I had saw John was he had nodded out in a bowl of spaghetti at this restaurant that we was in, and I noticed one thing about him. Every now and then, he was one of the few people that didn't come back to the set. He would walk by, he would look, he would wave, but he wouldn't come back. And during this time, I don't know anybody clean. What we call clean at that time was switching chemicals. I'm not doing heroin, I'm doing cocaine. I'm not doing cocaine, I'm doing this and all that. But he told me and introduced me to Narcotics Anonymous. He said, man, I'm in this program called Narcotics Anonymous. And the way I describe it, like with any transition in life, it's like you're laying out there in the ocean and you're waiting for that big wave to come so you can surf and ride that wave on in. And I tried it a couple times. I got introduced to it. I've probably been to maybe 8 or 9 different detoxes, went to rehab twice. I went to this one rehab twice. And the second time I went to this rehab, I had got married. I remember being down at the county jail. My wife my woman asked me would I marry her. I told her yeah. And the reason I told her that I would marry her because I thought the responsibility of being a father and being a husband would keep me clean. And the day that we got married, I remember telling her, I'll be right back. I remember looking her right in the eye. You know what I mean, George? My mom had gave me like $20. And I was really banking on this marriage keeping me clean. Y'all got to understand what I'm saying. So I told her, I said, I'll be right back. And I went and copped, and we went to a little hotel over there in Green Tree, and I'm sitting there mad as fuck because the dope wasn't no good. I'm not even thinking about, this is supposed to be a honeymoon. So after about a year or so passed, I remember telling her, I said, listen, I think I need to go back to that rehab place. And she said, well, that's what you need to do, this, that, and the other. So I called up there, and they asked me what was different. And I said, I don't know what's different. But I know that's the last place I've been where I felt safe. I go back up there. When I walk up there, there's this guy up there. He told me, as soon as he saw me, He remembered me and he said, I knew you would be back. Kind of pissed me off. And he said, you never surrendered. That's what he told me. He said, you never surrendered. So I leave that rehab. I go back up on the set and I get high again. I remember getting about a couple $1,000 and I ran through that money. I think I had maybe about $30 left. You ever know about those landmarks that you have in your addiction that you never want to go back to? Well, I had about $30 on me. There's these guys up the street that I know sold dope. I go up there and I'm on my way up. One of them is on his way down. And he said, Jerry, they up there talking about you. He said, they say you're a hypocrite. They say you around here talking about God and you're talking about being clean and you out here still shooting dope. And I felt this big in reverse. So I used till I didn't have no more money. I remember messing with this girl and she had started using before me and she called me. And this is how God works in my life. So she's using 40 going north. She's doing freebasing and this, that, and the other. And she calls me one day and she said, Jerry, did you get back to the rooms? And I said, no, I can't get back. I think I had about 5 or 6 or 7 days clean. I said, I can't get back. And she said, Jerry, you need to get back to the rooms because you don't belong out here with us. Now, she's an active addict. She's in her full-blown addiction. And the way I understand it is that God can use whomever God want to use to carry a message or the message. And so she drove all the way from up near Sarver, New Kensington, up that way, all the way to Allegheny Center on the north side to escort me to a meeting on Cedar Street around by John Neal's, which is a 2-minute walk from me. And I remember us going to the meeting round. It was the Avery Street meeting. And we sitting there. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest, Nate, I thought I was going to get some ass. Right? I was thinking, I was up there, well, maybe I'm going to get some ass out of this. In the back of my mind, which was always in the back of my mind, if I want to be honest. So we go around to the meeting, and we're sitting there, and I guess the disease of addiction just, on her. So in the middle of the meeting, she left. And I'm sitting there holding on to the chair with these newcomer feelings. Even though I had been in the process off and on, I got these newcomer feelings, and I'm looking around, and she's gone. And by God's grace, I haven't found it necessary to use since July 26, 1986. So I rode the wave in this time, right? Sponsor, home group, service work. Didn't take me long to start feeling better about myself. I started having a little hitch in my get along a little bit, right? I talk about this, I have to say this because this is who I am. When I come here, a lot of you guys heard me speak before. You have to have seen me. You have to have seen what I look like when I come into Narcotics Anonymous. I'm tiny. I'm about $1.17 or something. Like I say, my face is all broke out because of the dope and the quinine. I used to always bust my bumps in my face, and I got an afro, and it's all matted down, and none of my clothes match. It's just a mess. And so I slivered in here. And so when I started getting clean, I started feeling better about myself. I start dressing up a little bit. I start brushing my teeth, right? I start washing my ass. People would buy me like sneakers and tennis shoes. And it would help my self-esteem, man, just to be able to do these things. My self-esteem I feel better when I got a 30-day key tag. Y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Or I would get a 90-day key tag. Or I'd see somebody up there say they got 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, and I'd be like, damn, like how did they do that? And then I started getting a year, and different things started to happen. I started start working. I started getting a family. Start getting respect, right? So I continued in this process, had some ups and downs. Heard Dave speaking when I came in here, and it was real ironic because Brandon sent me a text the other day. I'm one of them type of people that I don't try to hide behind what's going on with me. If it's going on with me, it's going to come out. This is not a program that I learned where I need to be perfect in it. I just need to be honest about what's going on with me, because that's where the message is. Narcotics Anonymous is not about the problem, it's about the solution. And what this process teaches us is how to get through anything, right? I've been divorced in this process. I've been fired in this process. I've been busted, cheating in this process. I've been through a lot of things. And the most recent thing that I probably need to share about is my health. And I had to speak down at the convention down at, downtown, this year. And Josh, a couple guys that's, in my support group and stuff, they knew where I was at, like in a very odd, dark place. I'm for the most part, most of the time, I'm okay, right? But this particular season, I wasn't. And to make a long story short, I shared with some of the guys where I was at reluctantly. And what I ended up finding out is that I had kidney failure and that I would need to get a kidney transplant, or I would need to go on dialysis. But at the time that I heard it, I wasn't ready for that shit. No, because I haven't had any major stuff really like that. So I've shared this the other day. They say that God takes care of like babies and fools, right? And when you don't know no better and God is taking care of you, that's one thing, right? When I come out of a dark place or an unspiritual place, and I look back and people say, oh man, those footprints that you seen was God carrying you. You're like, oh yeah? Like he took care of me when I couldn't take care of myself, right? It's a little different when you're conscious of God taking care of you. When my spirit awakened to a level where I know that God is taking care of me, because if I do anything to the left or do anything to the right, there's consequences. So hypothetically, not even hypothetically, but realistically, I have to depend on God to say, so God, where's this going to end up? Am I going to find a kidney donor or am I not going to find a kidney donor? If I don't find a kidney donor, what do you want me to do? Do you want to, are you going to have to take dialysis, or what are you going to have to do? But I've been in this process long enough to know that I always land on my feet. See, when I get to a point where I know that God got me, no matter what the situation is, then my countenance and my spirit started being more light. I wasn't as heavy, right? So I'm moving through life a little bit more differently than I was that other season, that dark season. So I went through everything that they asked me to do. Running to the one lady, she's the coordinator, and she's up there, don't I know you? I said, this is a good sign, Rich. I was up there, this is a good sign. And then I'm moving through the process, and this is going to sound kind of odd. But I had got to the point, I remember being in jail one time down in Allegheny County Jail. And I'm sitting in the jail, and I just felt real warm. And it dawned on me that I was more in jail on the street than I was in the cell. And I got this sense of peace. And it's the same thing now, right? I got a sense of peace. So what is odd, I wasn't worried about the transplant. What I was thinking about is, God, how are you going to use me after the transplant? Like, where am I transitioning to? Like, what do you got in store for me, where I'm going to have to take a break from this or take a break for this? Because what is odd about it is that I really don't care about the transplant if God don't show me how he can continue to use me. I remember this guy saying, there's nothing more unsatisfying than an undirected spirit. Like a spirit that don't have no direction, don't have no purpose, right? So I go through this process, I'm going through this process, I'm pretty much okay. So my son casually mentions one day, oh, Dad, I'll do that. You only need one kidney, right? I say, yeah, as far as I know, son. But, this is some serious stuff. So we went to brunch the other day. So I was like, how the fuck you ask somebody, do you have a kidney? Like, how do you go up to somebody and say, hey, man, I need one of them motherfucking kidneys, man. Right? So we go to eat. I got all my paperwork that they gave me from the hospital. I said, I'm gonna ask his ass for real. So we sitting there and we eating. I'm like, Corey, was you serious? About what? I said, you remember at the house the other day you was talking about, like, sure, Dad, you give me a kidney and all that? He said, yeah. But his face changed just a little bit, George. I caught it. I caught the glimpse, right? And I looked at him, I said, okay, so, and I broke him down a couple of things that they had told me at the hospital and all this. And he said, well, there's one thing I want to know. I said, what? He said, how would it affect me in 10 years? I said, well, that's a question we can ask them. But far as I know, you would be okay. So it was a matter of him being a match too, right? So I think my blood type is AB. What's yours? He said, well, mine's a O. I said, okay. So I got the book out. I look at it. O is a match for anybody. Hey, George, I'm like, right? But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, God, you are so good. I'm saying to myself, right? I'm saying, God, you are so good. But still, it's not about the kidney. It's about living in a way that pleases God, where God can use me to touch somebody. Because what I don't want to do is just get a kidney and just, right? So I'm in this process. I'm feeling good about it. It's about God's grace. And I just want to say a couple things about that. Because what I'm beginning to find out is that God's grace never stops. It don't matter how much you fucked up. You can fuck up 15 times. You can fuck up 20 times. You can fuck up 30 times. And God's grace is always there. Now, we take little furloughs and shit. Right? But God's grace is always active. It's never inactive. It's just me being unaware and perceiving that God's grace is still active. Because I remember just kind of wanting to, I don't say I want to give up. Yes, I did. I wanted to give up a little bit when I got this news, right? And because every now and then I forget. Every now I forget how good God is just to have me in these rooms. They told me that the miracle then already happened. I just need to keep it alive. See, because I'm telling you, one of my blessings that God has blessed me with is I remember all of my pain and addiction. I don't know about y'all, but I remember all of my pain and addiction. So when I ended up here, I knew that was God's grace. I'm not smart enough or clever enough to get me here. I just ain't that smart. I really, really understand powerlessness. I really understand using without, against my own will, and being caught up in it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9, and not be able to do nothing about it. And then end up in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. It's by God's grace. And if you are here What I'm certain is that you've been chosen to be here. God has chosen you to be here. There's no other reason to explain how you can get high and do the things that you've done and your other guys are dead. And you're here. Why the fuck are you here? You ain't that smart. You ain't that clever. It's about God's grace. And there's a reason for me to be here. There's a reason for you to be here because there's somebody that only can hear your voice. And the reason you're here is to pass this on, to touch somebody. Let somebody know that they can stay clean another day. Because if they stay clean another day, your son might look at you again and say, there's my daddy. It ain't just for you. Khalees Amin, right? Khalees Amin says, you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed. You can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in the seed. Your job and my job is to plant the motherfucking seed. Because when we plant the seed, we don't know how far reaching the seed go. If I can touch him and he can touch them and they can touch those people, that's how this process works. How many good days can we create for somebody else? I have on my refrigerator, it says, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you might be the world. Don't pass up your opportunity to be a part of somebody's restoration to sanity. That's what we do here. We get through things. Like I said earlier, it's not about all the problems, it's about the solution. You guys need to hear, we talk about brothers dying, right? What you need to hear is, I stayed clean when my mom died. What you need to hear is, I stayed clean when my father died. What you need to hear is, I stayed clean when my only brother died. What you need to hear is, I stayed clean when my niece died. What you need to hear is, I stayed clean when 3 people that I sponsor died. And the reason I stayed clean is because when my sponsor's father died, I saw him stay clean. And when my sponsor's mother died, I saw him stay clean. And when my sponsor's only brother died, I saw him stay clean. There is no reason to use, only excuses. I say this all the time, man. And I hate to use this example, but it's real. Often we have reservations. And we'll say something like, I'll stay clean as long as my mom don't die. My question would be, did you ever use when your mom was alive? We use because we're addicts. We don't need no excuse. I just want to thank God for touching the people's hearts that came up with this program called Narcotics Anonymous, because it's actually uh, saved my life. I'm looking forward to like whatever the next chapter is, that God has in store for me. I'm going through like a little transition on my job as well. I think I might, well, it all depends on how my health is. I've invested probably 16, 17 years on my job. Love the men that's there, love the men that come through there. Depending on my health will determine what I do in that particular chapter in my life. And so like I'm in a transition with a couple things. But I'm in good spirits. Like I'm not depressed. I'm not down. I'm just in a good space because, I've had the experience of knowing that I will land on my feet. Like whatever God has planned for me is what God has planned for me. I've had too many perfect moments. I think George and Rich and a lot of guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that moment when you're with another recovering addict and you ain't supposed to be no other place than where you're at. So again, I want to thank Phil. I want to thank the committee, found me worthy of speaking at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. My name is Jerry, I'm an addict. Thanks for letting me share.